So we just got the finale of Invincible season 3, and it's potentially the best episode of the show so far. Probably even better than the season finale of season 1, which is probably the episode I would have given to like as the best episode until this one aired. And funny enough, a lot of the same story beats, the same story elements were kind of like paid homage to in this episode from that episode in season 1. Like, for example, when Nolan was, manhandling Mark through the crowd of people in the train. In this one, it was a beach, like a little beach town by Conquest. And even a scene where Mark is like tumbling through the city, and he's just like tumbling down and like crashing through, rolling a bunch of times. There was a shot like that too in the Nolan versus Mark fight from season 1. This one was a little definitely more detailed and more animated. Especially one scene that stuck out was when Mark was getting up. Like, you could really see the detail in just that scene. You could see the hair movements, and basically the animators cooked. The animators beat the Walsh allegations. They cooked this episode. And I don't even think it was just this episode. I think this season has been great overall in terms of animation. Of course, for the last episode, the last two, the finale, they're going to put more budget into it. That's something we see in every show. It's not just an Invincible thing. A lot of shows will have of course, their best animated episode in the last two or last one of the season. So it's always funny, but I'm not even gonna get into that in this video. This is not about the animation. It's a video for another time, or maybe never, because I'm tired of seeing people's takes on it. What I actually want to talk about today is Mark and how strong he got, or how strong he is in particular. And I know we got a little bit of a number, right? In, I think it was episode 1 or episode 2, early in the season, when Mark was doing a little training montage, we got specific numbers from Cecil, like how much his speed increased. It was like this, how many percent. I know his strength more than doubled, his speed went up a bunch too, right? But those are numbers on paper, and it's especially kind of meaningless to us because there was never really a base established for what Mark was before. We just knew he was weaker than Nolan, which again isn't really helpful because a lot of people are. So I feel like this episode gave us at least somewhat of a concrete look as to how strong Mark actually is, or how strong he got, and even like retroactively how strong he was before. Because let's be real, even in the fight with Conquest was like toying around most of it. But the thing is, Mark actually did damage to him, right? Even though Conquest was very clearly stronger than Mark, Mark's hits were enough where he actually bled, right? Oliver, for example, is a good reference point, like showing that Oliver literally did nothing to him. His hits were like a little kid spraying him with a water gun. Like, he literally didn't feel Oliver's hits at all. But Mark's hits, he actually felt them. Mark was able to actually knock him into buildings and make him bleed, right? Even though maybe he might have embellished how much Mark's hits were affecting him in the beginning, but especially towards the end of the fight, you could definitely tell that Mark's hits were actually affecting him. And Mark is strong enough where he's actually able to inflict damage if he really goes all out onto someone like Conquest. I feel like that's kind of significant. And the reason I think it's significant is because of what Conquest told Mark about how he's feared even amongst the Viltrumite. Like, they don't want to talk to him, they don't want to be his friend. He's the person that they sent after Anissa, and Anissa, from what we knew or heard, is pretty strong herself, right? Speaking of Cecil again, he actually commented, like, he was saying that this current Mark was probably around equal with Anissa, but he was like worried about what comes after Anissa. And well, this is Conquest is the one they sent after Anissa, right? So I think it's safe to say, especially now that Nolan told us there are less than 50 full-bred Viltrumites left in the universe, that Conquest is of the upper echelon, right? And I'm not a comic reader. This isn't me like teasing a spoiler or something. I don't know. I don't know who is or isn't stronger. This is just me guessing based on what we know from the show and just believing Conquest's words. And what from seeing what I did to Mark, I believe him when he says he's one of the most feared Viltrumites. So I feel like for once, Mark actually did really good against somebody that Cecil even guessed that Nolan would probably lose to. Mark did very well against him. Right? He was actually eating his hits. Like Oliver was out out of commission after 2 hits. The second hit that Conquest landed on Oliver, his teeth gone. Like he was done. It was GG's after 2 hits. But Mark tanked like 50 hits from him. And even especially the hit right after Mark saved Oliver, like where the building glasses, like the glass in the building right next to them was shattering. Like he ate that one, right? He didn't even move. His head just went back a little bit. He didn't go flying. He ate it and then he punched him right back into a building. So like Mark is actually really strong now. Like significantly stronger than we saw from season 1 Mark. And it's funny too because in what was it, episode 3 where Oliver killed the Maulers, the Maulers, I always forget the name. He killed them easily. People were like, "Whoa, why didn't Mark do it?" It's like, in my head, I was like, Mark didn't do that because he didn't want to. It's not that he couldn't. It's that back then he was still doing the "I don't want to kill" thing. That was his shtick. He was doing the Spider-Man thing. He didn't want to kill them, but he could have easily like ripped them in half anytime he wanted to, just like Oliver did. So people were trying to do like the speculation thing. It's like, oh, like Oliver, and he might be stronger than Mark. It's like, nah, he's not. Mark just holds back all the time. And this episode showed it. Like, if Mark wanted to, he could like rip through a million Olivers. Well, not a million. I feel like there's a certain amount of Olivers that jump Mark that Mark's going to lose. But point is, Mark is not weaker than Oliver. Mark is actually pretty strong. And for one of the first times, I'm actually proud of Mark, even though technically he didn't win on his own, right? He still had help. And that help came from Eve. I don't even count Oliver. Oliver didn't. In fact, Oliver was probably more of a burden than a help in any way. Because of Oliver, Mark ate like 2 hits that he didn't need to because he was just trying to get Oliver out the way. So in fact, I even count Oliver as like a net loss in terms of support. So instead of like, I'd say 2v1 with him and Eve, it's like a 1.75 versus 1 because because of the hits he had to take because Oliver was there. But nonetheless, of course, he had support. He probably would have died if not for Eve. Even if her blast didn't kill Conquest or it just ripped off his skin, it looked like that wasn't really a deterrent in terms of his strength. He got right back up and was ready to go. But Mark is the one who actually dealt the final blow with his head multiple times, right? When Hughes goes back to the planet, they are going to say that Conquest was killed by the Viltrumite on planet Earth, Mark, which is technically true. It wasn't a straight 1v1, but Mark is the person who put Conquest down. So I'll take it. To me, this is a dub for Mark in my book. You know, they don't come around often. So when I see a Mark dub, I'm taking it. This is a dub for Mark. It's W support from Eve, but this is a Mark dub for me. And hopefully there's more to come in season 4. But I know he's gonna get his ass kicked many times because what is an Invincible finale without Mark almost dying? That's just tradition at this point. But yo, W Mark took his first big dub. He beat a legendary Viltrumite, even with support. I'm still taking it. Dub's a dub.